So, Gerardo, what about like maybe even because you talked about other bands that you would be brought in as a sideman. How did you value your time and your talent, and how do you negotiate that sort of thing? And is there even a negotiation when you get an opportunity like Spoon, or they just offer you minimum wage? You're like, yeah, that's good, I'm good.
I mean, that's a good question, but really, for me, it was a very humbling experience, at least in the context of Spoon, just because, you know, we're all confident in what we do. We all think, oh, this part is badass and I really love it. And then we're in the studio recording and, I have my ideas of what I would like to try. And then you quickly find out, as, others have said, like, you really need to learn where your spot is and where your place is and when those times are appropriate or not. And at the end of the day, when it comes to like, your contribution to a project or a song, I think for me, it's been eye-opening and really humbling in the sense that it's made me really think about very consciously about what I am doing, right? Like sometimes you just play something, you think it sounds good and you think that's going to work, but is it really doing something for the song? Is it really actually adding a unique value to the song that somebody else could not bring? And so I'm in a unique position where, I play keyboards and guitar in Spoon, but Britt is a fucking badass guitar player. And Alex, who's the keyboard player, quote unquote, he's a badass guitar player too. And he's an amazing keyboard player, So it's really learning when you hear something and you really think it's going to add value, just speaking up, or otherwise just knowing when to step back. And just sometimes you, like, at least in my experience when we've been recording, sometimes some people are just not even on the song at all because whatever was tried just didn't fit, and you have to be okay with that. And it's kind of a tough pill to swallow sometimes from an ego perspective.
I bet. Dan, like being in bands for 8, 9 years, you must be okay to hang out with. But what is that balance between being the guy that people want to perform with versus people being the guy that people just want to hang out with, especially in a studio or a intense tour situation?
Interesting. Like I'm sitting here listening to all these responses, and the word sideman is turning into sidekick in my head. Because I like in hearing these stories, I'm feeling like I've been in situations where like I become the replacement for the lead guitar player, and that guy was also the main writer. And it's happened in both bands that I've been in that I was asked to join. So it turned into situations where I was kind of immediately given the responsibility of like, hey, we kind of need to rely on you. Let's write some riffs. Like for instance, Spencer's been coming over to this studio like 3 days a week for us to record new stuff. And it's a situation where like I'm tasked, and I have Joe, our piano player, who's our bass player and piano. He's unbelievable musician. So we're tasked with translating all of Spencer's like wild, outlandish ideas that are not necessarily delivered the way that a musician would deliver an idea. So we're left to like translate words to figure out what he means. Like this adjective must mean like this EQ, or like he wants a riff like this. So a lot of times, for me, the side man thing, as far as just coming in and being like the role that's needed, I feel like I'm oftentimes put in a situation where there's like a responsibility put on me that by living up to it, I think that allows a trust to be kind of birthed that allows me to be the guy you want to hang out with and the guy you want on the bus and the guy you want on the stage, because you can rely on me, you could have fun. But I really think it comes down to the fact that like showing up, doing the work and being there to see it through, I think is really what's proven like me being given the opportunity to be loyal is a two-way street. You know what I mean? Like clearly I had to show up and do the work. So I think that a big part of it is just showing up and being willing to do whatever it takes to get the best sound. Like I think Gerard mentioned it before. It's like Owen did. The best idea is the one that should like rise to the top, right? So if I'm willing to see that through, whether it's mine or not, and be non-attached to it emotionally, I think that's always been the best end result. But Yeah, I think there's something really, really interesting to be said about just like my mind switching to sidekick totally made me think about this slightly differently. I don't know if anyone else is kind of seeing that too.
No, got it. Mike, we all know what breaks up bands or causes bands to lose members. Are the rules different for sidemen? Like what causes a sideman to be dropped? Things that sidemen need to know and be aware of when they get into these situations?
Should I write this down right now? Should I take notes?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm curious to see what the others on the panel, their experience has been. But, I think in a lot of ways it is a more clearly defined relationship. With most of the bands that I've managed as an artist development manager, you get these guys that met in high school, and it's really some sort of friendship where, the singer was the guy who couldn't play an instrument, so he ended up being the singer. Or the bass player, that was the simplest instrument for him to figure out. And then once you start, the band grows and is warranted of, having the, role of somebody like these guys, the relationship just totally changes. And you're able to clearly define things a little bit better. And it, sounds like from the cast we have here, everybody understands the level of professionalism, it's raised. And in fact, I think that's why in some cases it can work so well, right? You don't have you don't have the baggage that comes with the things that maybe broke the band up, or even that wasn't what broke them up, but it was carrying itself on. And you've got this clearly defined relationship, which allows everybody to thrive. Not always the case, but
Doc,
can
you were
be the
raising
case.
you were raising your hand there. I think you had something you wanted to add as well.
Yeah, I'd say that probably the one factor that gets hired guns kicked out of bands is overestimating their own value or kind of irreplaceability. And anytime, and that's why I say never get comfortable. Always, like me, and a lot of people don't know this, even in Bad Wolves, the only technical members of the band are singer and drummer. So even though I'm in the band, and it's my band, I'm not in the band and it's not my band. So, so I kind of always act as if, I could not, I could be out of the band in 5 seconds, and always, and I can name some people, that's happened to, and they just got a little too comfortable, and they were feeling themselves too much, and they started, well, I need this much, and I want this, and it's like, oh yeah, there's the door, have fun. And which is fine. And sometimes people outgrow a situation or outgrow a role where they're in a support role, and maybe it's time for them to kind of be at the head of their own organization or anything. But I just wanted to make that point. That's usually the thing I see.
Well, you sort of touched on one thing. I was going to ask a question to you that's sort of the flip of this, but maybe I'll ask both sides. Like, you're very active on social media. Is there a argument for associating yourself with the band and becoming one of the more upfront members of the band on social media as a form of job security? And then the flip side of that being, do you have to be more careful on social media because somebody could not like what you say, and that could be detrimental to your standing as an employee with that particular company?
Yeah, I mean, I could say with Bad Wolves in particular, we're in a odd situation, probably not too dissimilar from Ice Nine Kills, where the lead singer gets most of the attention, and kind of a big portion of the fan base is connected to that one individual. So I kind of talk about it from ultimately, I think it's better for the band if the fans know everyone and are familiar with everyone. So anytime the organization, the management focus, puts too much on the singer, I'm like, I get it. You guys are kind of going with the easy thing, but in the long run, it hurts you because it associates the band with one person. And if you're going to be a band, like I said, not every band is a band, right? It can be Marilyn Manson, and even though there is a band, it's Marilyn Manson, or Rob Zombie. It's Rob. He has band members, but it's Rob Zombie. Unless you want it to be that, then you have to give you have to give everyone a platform, and you know, many of the biggest bands, you know, whether it's Metallica or Korn or you know, Guns N' Roses, like the fans know everyone in the band, and they're fans of everyone, you know, and so it's important for, you know, it's kind of interesting just seeing the other guys in my band really learn and go out of their way to establish themselves as individual entities, because they were the least known people when the band got started, and they're on top of it, you know, and because they're starting to see, oh, the more I make myself available, the more I kind of do self-branding, and every guy like sells his own like guitar pick packs and is selling photos and doing all, and it's working, and people are saying, oh no, that's not just the bass player, they know your name and they know your face, and if you don't do that stuff, you're just, you know, I always talk about that Almost Famous thing. It's like, don't worry about me, I'm just the out of focus guy, like, you know. Don't, you know, you have to make sure you're not just the out of focus guy.